Room 276. The boy sat, with his mind in a lucid state of equanimity, his thoughts in parallel with the bare, barren and empty state of the room he was being held in. Monochrome silence surrounded him. Within the void of colour, the boy simply existed. He hadn't moved in hours. After all, he had nowhere to go, and as far as he knew, his legs wouldn't listen to him. And although it would have taken minimal effort to walk to the single decoration in the room, the small window on the east wall, he continued to impersonate his stoic stature. He'd looked through the window many times before. He wouldn't look again. All there had been, was white. It was like a sort of snow. However, no wind came through the mysterious window. There was no atmosphere, just bone chalk. At one point, he'd wondered whether you could even call it a window at all. It had no glass or material in its alabaster frames. And when the boy had used to put his head or his hand out of the window, all there was, or there had been, was blinding white. As far as he could see, it was like he was in a box simply floating in a space of milk. And all too soon, the lack of dimension would confuse his brain, and he would return to his sitting state on the floor to recuperate. Yet, from time to time, a fleeting flicker of a past long gone would glaze over the whites of his eyes as he remembered a life of sound and feeling and colour and scent. But the illusion would be over as fast as it had flashed by, and he would continue staring at the whitewashed walls of his cell. Sometimes he had trouble distinguishing his pale skin from the floor, and he would gasp in heavy relief and drip tears of happiness as he scratched away the skin from his wrist and relished in the scarlet bonds that erupted from his veins. His own sort of validation that he wasn't completely wasting away, that there is indeed a world of colour. After a few hours, he would struggle to keep his eyes open. He would scream to keep his eyes open. He would draw more and more verification from his skin and pinch himself to keep his eyes open. For every time he closed his eyes to pass into regretful sleep and opened them again to welcome a new hour, the colours would have gone, and he'd be alone again. He didn't feel much. In fact, he rarely felt anything. As his brain began to accustom to this plain new lifestyle, it managed to function without anything. He seized the need to excrete and had terminated the need to eat. He hadn't smelt food, he hadn't tasted food. There was no way he even could taste food. He'd almost forgotten what food looked like. After all, how could anything possibly visit the boy if there were no door? The only way in and out of the room was the window, and he could only just fit his head through the vertical rectangle. He caught a drifting thought. He remembered when he had first woken in the box, his first few attempts to escape with nothing but the clothes on his back. That not being much, but simply a white jumpsuit. The jumpsuit had nothing in its pockets and did not consist of any hard object other than the zipper. Breaking it off, he'd attempted to scratch at anything, anywhere, but he'd soon worn down the zipper itself, and out of rage thrown the blunt out of the white window, where he watched it get smaller and smaller, and never heard a sound to signify it touching a floor. Another time, when he really was still a fledgling to the box, when the box hadn't extracted his memories, when his skin had still been flushed with sunlight and his lips pink with emotion, he had thought starving himself was the key to fitting through the small white window and free-falling to the nearest degree of normalcy he could ascertain. However, despite the exercises he made, despite the bones he broke in trying to forcefully squeeze through the window, despite the blood that once erupted from his nose and dripped into the white abyss below as he put his body under high pressure, trying to get through the window, he'd never been able to come even close to success, and he'd spend several days more trying to dislodge himself from his fake salvation and nurse his wounds, which would disappear as soon as he'd fallen asleep on the floor again, like his body had reset. He was wearing the chalk jumpsuit now. Without the zipper handle, he often had difficulty zipping the jumpsuit back up again from the back, considering he now only had the base of the zip, but it kept him warm. Not that a temperature seemed to exist in the room. One could say the room was a comfortable temperature. He may even have been able to tell if he remembered what hot and cold felt like. He didn't know how long he had been in the place. He'd suffered from an infinite number of sleeps and an endless number of arousals. However, never once found a way to measure his days and nights. Nights? What did they even look like? He couldn't even remember the night that had trapped him here in the first place.